Hey everyone, thanks for coming on to the show today, and we're here at Heroes Manufactured Live for another great episode. This is our 6th episode. We're here today with a very special artist from Ohio. His name is Sean Forney. Great artist that works with Dynamite, IDW, a number of great labels, and he'll tell us a little bit more about that today. I did want to get you guys a little bit of information with regards to the show, so that will be coming out, as I mentioned in the last episode this July. We're featuring a number of great artists from across the country, both in Canada and the US, so 2 countries there. Yeah, we're going to be exploring New York Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, Fan Expo, Niagara Falls Comic-Con, the Motor City Comic-Con in Detroit. So that's going to be in our upcoming episodes. So a number of great artists from across the board, with some known artists as well, as Todd McFarlane's in it, J. Scott Campbell. So we've got a number of really great, big, known artists across the U.S. and Canada that are going to be featured. So yeah, we're going to get right into it today. Just to let you guys know a little bit more about what we're going to do after the show. Again, we're going to do the little bit of the toy collectibles and the comic vault segment. So feel free to stay tuned for that as well. And yeah, we're going to introduce you guys to Mr. Sean Forney. So hey there, Sean. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Great. Thanks for coming on to the show today. I appreciate you coming out and being a part of the Heroes Manufactured Live team. And yeah, we're hopefully going to bring you on to more shows after this as well. So yeah, I mean, we'll just kind of get right to it. Just wanted to know a little bit about you. I know you've been doing some really cool work with I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Dynamite, IDW, just some of the labels. I know you've even done some work, you've mentioned to me, through Marvel. But if you could kind of get started with a little bit of telling us a little bit about you, what you got you into the industry, inspired you, and got you into comics in general.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, and glad to be here and be part of it, and get the opportunity to chat here.
For sure.
So as a kid, like basically, as soon as I could hold some crayons, that was what got me started in drawing. My folks, more than likely wanted to keep me occupied doing something, and it's like, here's a box of crayons, and start coloring in a coloring book, drawing on whatever notepads are laying around the house. As far back as I can remember, I was always into watching cartoons, and when I was growing up, like the first cartoons I ever got into were Masters of the Universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and a little bit later on, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. They were all these things that like really grabbed my interest, kept me entertained, and I was constantly trying to draw pictures of those guys in the notepads or in the coloring books, things like that. And I think I was probably about 5-6 years old, something like that. And I remember my dad was taking me. I often would go to work with my dad, like during summers or things like that, so that I wasn't going off to a babysitter's house. So Dad would stop by the corner drugstore and let me pick up some comic books. And so one of those first times going in, I came across a Marvel Comics Presents featuring Spider-Man, and that's what grabbed me. It was like I saw the same thing I was watching on the Saturday morning cartoons and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. There was a comic book of it, so it was my first introduction to actually picking up and reading a comic book and all this, and that stuff all just kind of stuck with me throughout the years. And later on, found out through reading some magazines and things like that, like how you break in the comic book industry, and I just went after it from there.
That's awesome. It's a lot of inspiration for our viewers too, because a lot of artists that are join our Facebook group that are part of the Heroes Manufactured show. These are followers of yours, of other people as well as other artists, and we're always picking up from each other's skills and inspiration. So that's awesome. And I mean, how do you view yourself? I mean, I've mentioned this a few times with some of my artists, or other artists as well. But how do you see yourself as, like, an independent artist in the business, in the industry? How do you view yourself in a nutshell?
I guess to me it's a little bit kind of abstract. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this for probably about 17, 18 years now.
Nice.
And it's always been a thing I've wanted to do, dreamt of doing, whatnot. And I've had the opportunity to do it for a living now for that long, and it's it's a great journey.
Do you feel you're still learning and growing by any chance? Like, is that something you feel like?
Yeah. I mean, a friend of a number of years back said to me something to the extent of, every day's a school day. You learn something new every day. Yeah. And it's totally true. I mean, especially lately because of the pandemic that's going on. It's yeah. I've been sitting here trying to teach myself how to use a lot of the different streaming applications and services and whatnot, so that I can get some sort of like a virtual convention experience, because
and that's kind of what we're doing now, right? This is exactly that.
Yeah, and as being an artist, things didn't change very much when this whole pandemic came around and they put out the stay-at-home orders. I stay at home. It's kind of my normal everyday thing, except for I'm used to every couple of weeks going out and going to a comic book convention or something along those lines. And
yeah, us comic book artists are the real survivalists in this pandemic, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, my day-to-day hasn't changed much, other than, again, I'm not being able to get to a comic book convention like every couple of weeks or whatnot, so I don't get to see some of my friends. But doing this, to have this kind of virtual interaction, has been some sort of escape, a way of getting a little bit of that in, where I can talk to some buddies and we can hop online and crack the same jokes we would in person, but we're doing it through the internet. Of course.
And what's great with us is that we do have quite a nice subscription based on YouTube, so hopefully we'll really push this out there for you, and for others that come onto the show. So we'll get right into kind of like your work. I mean, you've done some work with Dynamite, as we've mentioned, IDW, Marvel, and some of the other major brands in the industry. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you mentioned Zenescope as one of the companies, and I'd love to show some of your work here. So I'm going to start with some of the work here, just for you to kind of briefly go over. But here's one that you did, I believe, Bloodstrike. If you can tell us a little bit about this and working on this project. This is a Rob Liefeld project, right?
Yes. So back when this book was getting ready to launch, unbeknownst to me, I was going off to San Diego Comic-Con. I want to say this was probably, I'll say 2014, 2015, something in that ballpark. It was literally the night before we were getting ready to fly out.
Yeah.
My wife and I stopped off to grab some dinner. We were on the way home. My cell phone went off with a notification from a buddy of mine that said, hey, check this out, something like that. So I go onto Facebook and see that Rob Liefeld was looking for colors for various projects.
And I love your color work, by the way, I have to say.
Thank you. So my buddy tags me in this post to give me a heads up on it, because potentially I'd be seeing Rob Liefeld over the weekend at Comic-Con. So I kind of thought, is this really going to turn into anything? Whatever. So I believe what I tried to do was either Friday or Saturday at the con. I was set up in small press with my buddy, which, if anybody's ever been to Comic-Con International, Small Press and Artist Alley are at complete opposite ends of the building, and the building is
like way off.
yeah. So, you know, I kind of hemmed and hawed over it, and I was like, hey, do I make this trek over there? You know, is it, you know, am I going to be wasting my time? Whatever. All these things are running through my head, and I finally said, okay, I'm doing it. It's kind of towards the end of the day, and I make my way over to Artist Alley, and I see his banner, but I don't see him sitting in front of the table. And I was like, oh man, I just, you know, came all the way over here. He's not here. Kind of immediately bummed out. But I just happened to scan the banners above all the tables around him, and I see Murat Michaels. I see his banner, and I go up to him, and I think he was like working on a sketch or something. I just, you know, I said, excuse me, hey, do you know if Rob's coming back sometime later today? You know, I saw he was looking for a color, so on and so forth. And Murat's like, well, you know, I'm kind of in that same issue. He's like, I need a colorist too. He's like, let me see what you got. Let me see your portfolio. So I hand it off to him. He thumbs through it real quick, and he's like, you know, we chat a little bit back and forth, and he's like, hey, I think I got some work for you. He's like, but I'll make sure Rob sees it. And you know, so then I'm, complete 180. I'm from bummed out to like
stoked. Yeah, I get it. And so I'm gonna take you into another image here. This is some other work you've done here, and this is, I see the Naughty and Nice. This is for I see CP as a one shot, and then you've got what's that other label for Naughty and Nice there?
So all three of those books are Counterpoint Comics.
Counterpoint Comics, okay.
Which is Murat Michaels, which the Tigum image was drawn by Murat and colored by me, and so Murat was who I ended up talking to when Rob wasn't at the table, and I go back to the next day, like, you know, Murat had suggested, and I run into Rob, and like before I even get to the table, Murat's kind of like tapping him on the shoulder and being like, hey, this is the guy. I get over and, you know, I introduce myself to Rob, and he's like, hey, I'll definitely have some stuff for you.
Oh, nice.
And so between both of the guys, I mean, it was just a complete trip of, you know, just being ecstatic of like, hey, these guys, wow. You know, I was reading the work these guys were doing growing up as a kid, and it's like, I, you know, have the potential to work with them. And Rob, I've got a chance to, I did that Bloodstrike cover that you showed.
Yeah.
And I did a personal piece, which working on that Bloodstrike cover introduced me to Carl Alstetter, who's another very talented artist, and we've got to know each other really well. And we, the last couple of Comic Cons, got a chance to, BS at the con and whatnot. And last year we got to hang out at one of the after parties a little bit. And
that's all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like I said, I think it was like 2014, 2015 when I met them all. And we've all stayed in contact. Murat and I work together pretty much every day.
Very nice.
All the books you just showed, the Do You Poo?
Yeah.
Hardly Nice.
And so there's this other. This is Lady Death. This is by Brian. The original characters by Brian. How do I pronounce his last name? Is it Puello or
Pulido? I believe.
Pulido. Sorry. Yeah. So I mean, Brian Pulido. I know he created Lady Death, but this is a cover done. So you did the colors here, and then Diego Bernard did the artwork on this.
Yes. So another story from Comic-Con last year at Comic-Con. Over the last couple of years, I've met and talked with Brian a couple of times, but hadn't really had to have too much of an interaction because that was really the only time I saw him was at San Diego during the summers. So last year, I took a break from my table, ventured down to the Coffin Comics booth, and had a nice quick little chat with Brian. He's like, hey, I'd love to work together at some point. And I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after Comic-Con was over, you know, we connected through email and stuff. And that was the first cover I got the opportunity to color for him. And since then,
I think he's an awesome guy. I mean, I helped a few years ago. I guess he had a couple of Kickstarters, so I pitched in on that. I always loved and admired his work on Lady Death. I mean, this is just like, this is an awesome color job you did here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean that also takes me into one of your own. So this is your own work, right? Scarlet Huntress.
Yeah. So it's my wife and I's create our own title. We've been working on it since 2003 is when we came up with the character. We've been self-publishing it since then. It's kind of a labor of love, if you will. We do it kind of in between all the other stuff we do. My wife teaches full time, and she helps me out with pretty much everything else I do art related. Whether it's going to conventions or just kind of keeping stuff organized, all that kind of
That's
stuff.
amazing that she so Stephanie wrote it, and then you did the artwork essentially, right?
Yes, and so over the last like 15, 16 years since we started working on it, we put out 4 regular issues. We put out a kind of a tie-in book that's Scarlet's journal. It's her field guide to cryptids, which we're working on putting out a new volume. Hopefully sometime later this year. We're going to launch a Kickstarter again. So it'll be our 4th Kickstarter, the 3rd one for the Scarlet Huntress books. And it's basically just her kind of personal journal of all the monsters she comes into contact with over her, various, adventures and whatnot. So that's in the works.
That's awesome work, man. I mean, and now I have another one, the TMNT Turtles universe. I mean, I've seen this cover at shops here in Toronto. I mean, this is awesome work you did here. Again, more amazing color work. And what I like is, I mean, it's really interesting because, I mean, even from going to your own drawings where we were here a minute ago and now we're back at Turtles, I feel like I can tell, like, just by the way you do coloring, it's very apparent that it's you. Whereas I don't notice that with a lot of people doing coloring. So, I mean, it's like you bring a certain life to the work, which is amazing. So, yeah, tell us, I mean, this is an SDCC exclusive cover you did. When was this released, and tell us a bit about this?
That was released I want to say 2015 or 2016. So with working with Marat and his business partner Brian Sharp, Brian actually contacted me to color this book for Eddie. They put this out. This was their con exclusive. And I don't recall the rest of the details of like who the exclusive was for, but basically it was kind of like a comic shop variant to be released at Comic-Con that year. And Brian got a hold of me, put me in touch with Eddie, and I think we had like a day or two to get everything done and get it sent off to Nickelodeon for approval, because this was shortly after like they really started going full bore with all the turtle stuff over at Nickelodeon.
And you work with Eddie Nunnez now. I mean, by this point, Rob Liefeld, you've done all this stuff. I mean, it's a great, like, it's literally a story, right, from beginning to end that you've got, like, that, where it's taking you from one point to another. Not end yet, but my point is that you really, like, establish yourself well within those years, right?
Yeah. It's been kind of a whirlwind, and it amazes me how quick it's gone by.
Yeah. That's always the shame in this, is that time just flies and we're like, where did it go?
Yeah, exactly.
And so this brings me kind of like to the last piece that you put into the mix of things here. But this was a very well-known Vampirella cover. So you did the artwork here, you did the coloring, you kind of put it all together. And this was released not that long ago, correct?
Yeah, it was last September. So my one of my local comic shops there, Flying Monkey Comics and Games, we had been talking for a couple months trying to nail down doing a store exclusive cover, and the opportunity came up to do this. And here again, it was like a night or two before leaving for San Diego. I get the email from the comic shop owner, and he's like, "Hey, we got the opportunity to do this. We need to have artwork to them by," I think it was 3-4 days after Comic-Con was over.
Wow, pretty amazing image, I have to say. I mean, I even spoke to you recently about commissioning me Vampirella and Red Sonja. It's absolutely great cover. Probably one of one of the better ones that I've seen. I mean, in terms of the two characters, and they just look so violent with their swords. There, you don't want to mess with those two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool what you've been doing. I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time. I really admire your work. One thing I forgot to mention to our viewers is that today we're going to be doing a little sketch with you, a little bit of a practice run, just to see how you put together a character. So, would it be okay if we got started with that, Sean?
Sure.
Yeah, and we'll ask some questions as you're drawing to tell us a little bit more about your story and what got you into this. But yeah, we'll get started now. So Sean here is going to take us into his own personal studio space, as you can see it, but also onto his table, so we can get a better idea of what. So do you have a specific character that you're going to be commissioning today for one of your customers or clients?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from scratch with a sketch here, and I'll switch the camera over here in just a second so you guys can see the board here. But basically, I'm going to do because we just rolled into May. Tomorrow's May 4th, or as us nerds like to say, May the 4th be with you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no Star Wars movie while we're doing that, but.
So a friend of mine came up with this awesome list, and I'll try to display it on camera. It's not anything fancy here, but so he came up with this calendar. He's got a daily Star Wars character to draw.
Oh, okay.
So I told him I would try to participate in as much as possible. So today is Tano, and Clone Wars is about to end. We're gonna get the last episode tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd try to jump in and do that, and this will be kind of my little warm up sketch for the morning, which I know you personally have jumped in on my morning warm up sketch live streams over the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome, and I love the way you do these sketches, because I mean, I love how smooth you just get into your lining, and you just kind of start figuring out things from what I'm seeing even right now. I mean, I'm assuming this is just you're really trying to figure out the spatial kind of areas between the anatomy and where they are sitting on the page.
Yeah. So I usually, like, if I were doing something for either a commission or for a published piece, something like that, I usually start out with like really small thumbnail sketches in my sketchbook, and then I might blow those up, or at least try to replicate whatever I did in that little sketch. But something like this, I usually will start out basically just on a larger scale of doing that same kind of thing. And much like you said, I will try to figure out what can I do.
Yeah, I noticed with these like online sketches, you've been doing a lot of more torso kind of head shots. And I mean, they like, I guess those are a lot quicker. I know even for me, when I start to sketch, just because you're not getting the full detailed drawing, but I mean, it's enough to do a nice character study. And a lot of times I've seen you even pen, ink, color these things. So I mean, it's pretty awesome. I mean, you've been showing these online. What kind of tools do you use? I mean, typically when you do these, I mean, with your pencil, is it like an HB? Is it a 2H, or what would you typically use?
Usually for doing these sketches, when I start out, I usually start with a 4H, just so I can keep it really light on the page, so that erasing gets a little bit easier. And then I jump back in with a.
I gotta start taking notes, man.
I usually jump back in with an H to go through and do kind of finished pencils.
Okay.
And just kind of what I've worked at over the years of doing this, and just found what works best for me. Like I said, a lot of times if I were doing something like, if this were going to be more of a finished commission piece, I might do this kind of sketch on a scrap piece of paper, or something like a thin piece of printer paper, and then actually lightbox the sketch onto what's going to be on the finished page, just to keep everything cleaner. kind of alleviate some of the mess that this will end up making.
Yeah, I noticed you kind of go back and forth from erasing certain things, trying to figure out. I guess at times you don't like one thing, but then you move to the other thing. And I've seen a lot of. I mean, here in Toronto, I promote him all the time here. But if you take a look behind me, he's in the poster actually right there. Ty Templeton, if you've ever met him before, he's an artist for Marvel and DC. He has a school here in Toronto called the Comic Book Boot Camp. So I mean, just seeing him do the same kind of thing, I've seen a lot of artists do that. Where they're constantly trying to refigure out and reposition the head, reposition the arm, the leg, whatever the body part may be. So yeah, it seems like you're going over and over until you find the perfect kind of pose and position, correct?
Yeah. So like this is what art school would normally refer to as a gesture drawing. It's just trying to map out where everything's going to go, just kind of get the feeling, the movement, all those various things. Just trying to like hammer that down before moving on to doing something a little bit more finished. And doing it here, I'm obviously just kind of doing everything on the fly, whereas most times I would kind of map this stuff out a lot more in advance.
Yeah.
But this is this is kind of like one of those live cooking type shows. It's like, well, we're just gonna do it, and we
just kind of get right into it. And it's so funny because I mean I've taken some classes with gesture drawing and some life drawing as well over the years. Here in Canada, in Toronto, we have an art school. I went to the Ontario College of Art and Design a few years back. Wow, a few years back. It feels like ages now that I think about it. But I mean, the one thing with gesture drawing, and I'm noticing some people teach it differently too. There's like some people. I was mentioning a book last week where they talk about force drawing and drawing with force and using certain lines of force in order to to show a specific position or movement or gesture. So I mean, it's interesting. There's different schools of thought, but they kind of like merge into the same idea at the end of the day. And to me personally, it's always getting that gesture down right. And I love watching your work because of that. I mean, you tend to really start to figure that out there, and then a beautiful image composes out of it. So it's quite nice in that sense.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of trial and error, and just all the stuff that I've learned over the years. I try to put it into some sort of
yeah. And do you notice anything with regards to like angles? I mean, if you're because I like one thing I like to always study myself. I mean, I'm not sure if you've done this or not, but I look at cinema and film. I came from like a film TV background as well, so I like to look at a shot of a movie or a shot of other poses, whether it's images or whatnot, where you get to actually see a certain motion, certain movement, but also a certain angle where you wouldn't normally catch seeing people day to day or even in general photography. Because I mean, you go online, the photography is pretty limited unless you start digging deep and you see a really low shot, high shot, a high angle, close up, medium close up, whatever it may be. I mean, do you ever study cinema in that sense to get that kind of motion?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things that I kind of just try to be aware of whenever watching a movie or watching a TV show, something like that. It's something I just try to be aware of.
Awesome.
But then, when it comes down to doing a lot of this stuff, it does kind of come into play of like, maybe needing to reference a certain photo to get, a particular aspect to look right. And just doing that research, like I said, it's just, you got to kind of dig deep to find some of this stuff to see if it, is even out there. And then, then I try to find all the other things that'll, basically get the job done of like, can I pose an action figure? Can I, recreate whatever I'm trying to do with a, taking a photo or, posing in front of the mirror, all those type of things, just to get it, get something a little bit more accurate. And then then that's where imagination comes in, and kind of.
And I want to ask something because it's funny. I remember speaking to Neil Adams actually about this at a convention recently. There's a famous Neil Adams Superman a number one. Well, it's not really a number one, but where he's posing and he's breaking off a chain. And when I asked Neil about that, someone else was mentioning to me that Neil absolutely hates that pose. Do you find yourself ever hating certain drawings that you've made, and you're just like, oh, I know I can do a lot better, and this is just garbage or something like that, like where you're really criticizing yourself a lot, and in that sense, just wondering if that's something that ever comes about.
Oh yeah, all the time. Anything that is the time frame always changes. It might be something I did yesterday. It might be something I did a couple of years ago. Oh, there's definitely times where I look at it and go, yeah, I could have done this better. I could have done that better.
It's part of the self-criticism that we all have in the art world, right? And it's interesting because when I look at your work, I'm like, man, I wish I could draw like you. This is just absolutely incredible. And I look up to people like you, and I look up to other artists that are like you doing this and understand the anatomy the way that you do, and understand where certain things are placed, proportions, whatnot. So it's really unique to me for me to see this, and it's really unique for me to hear from artists who've made it and work with with major brands such as yourself, and still kind of doubt themselves, which is I find unique and admirable in many ways, because it shows we're all human. We're all trying to better our work and try to better what we're doing. So hopefully that will inspire some people to pick up a pencil or a pen and start sketching, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I cannot recall where it came from initially, but I love to play guitar, and I'm a big fan of a lot of guitar oriented stuff. And it was something I know that I at least heard from a musician once. It's like, if you're playing something and you think you've already reached your pinnacle, your peak, then you've kind of failed. You should always want to evolve and continue to grow, and not just stay stagnant and stay the same thing. And I think that holds true for when it comes to, especially when it comes to anything comic book oriented, is you want to see artists grow and continue to evolve. You take a guy like, I think Jim Lee is a really good example in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's like he still draws like Jim Lee, but if you take a piece he did today and compare it to a piece,
he evolves all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's always evolving. He's always continuing to grow. He always, you can always tell a Jim Lee piece.
Yeah, but it's funny. I noticed the same thing with Neil Adams. Like, if I look at his work from like the 60s, 70s to 70s to what he's doing now, and you're just like, wow, this guy's evolved. Now, he looks more like Jim Lee, whereas in the and it's funny because Jim Lee took a lot of his inspiration and his style in the 90s, but kind of put his own spin into it.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, I find it really unique, and I've mentioned this once, I think, before on the show. If not, I'll mention it now. But Neil Adams, when I originally met him, I've interviewed him now at least 4 or 5 times. Know his kids, interviewed them quite a few times, and they're absolutely incredible people, amazing and fun and sarcastic at the same time. But Neil was saying, listen, learn the human body by tracing. Like he was telling me, like, the reality is, pick up a book, pick up a photo of a human body, an actual human body, and draw from that. Start with understanding, like whether it's tracing, and then move into actually looking at it, and then drawing it from visually staring at it, and eventually you'll start to form that, drawing from imagination and remembering. It's you're building those brain muscles, I guess, to remember where certain parts of the body are and how they're viewed from different angles and how you can cheat certain things and not. So that's one thing that I've always noticed over the years. And I mean, I feel like especially in the world of comics now and learning how to draw, people are always trying to pick up more info, more ideas on what they can do to improve their drawings. And it's something that I want to incorporate with our show as well, because especially what you're doing here. I mean, this is amazing. Like you've taken a sheet of paper and you've transformed it. Wow, you mind if we take a little closer look there on the face as well, because it just looks amazing.
Oh, sure.
Wow, that you've already really like. I mean, it's incredible. I always tell myself if I ever wound up in jail, all I need would be like a pencil and a piece of paper, and we're good, right?
Right.
Not that I'm planning to anytime soon, but
Try to avoid that one.
Yeah, definitely avoid that one. But this is absolutely incredible. And so when you put an image like this together, and you so now you've done the pencil work, and then once you get into the inking and then the coloring, what does a full image like that, like a full commission like that, take you to do?
It ranges. I'd like to say, if I'm doing a like a commission sketch that we're, this is like an 8.5 by 11 size, I usually about 2-3 hours sometimes. But when I'm doing these things from home, it's like I may get a half hour here, half hour there, or 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there to work on it. So it's like, it's kind of hard for me to sit there and kind of gauge how much time I'm really spending on these things. And it's probably more so than I should, if you want to look at it that way. But I want to make it look as good as I can. And, like I said, I might put a little bit more time in it than I probably should, but I want
to. I mean, that's good enough for us right now. I mean, I love here, you can put yourself back in screen so we can see you, and then we'll start ending off the show, because we are going to go into another segment shortly. But thank you for that sketch today, Sean. I really do appreciate it. That's incredible. And so I appreciate you coming out today, giving us a sketch, telling us a little bit about your work. Again, I mean, this is one book here. Definitely, guys, check out Scarlet Huntress. A great book. Where can people find more information about you? I'm going to put your information down here. So
there we go. Yeah. I mean, you got my website. You got all the social media scrolling there. So if you visit any one of those, there should be links to all the rest of them. But you can always reach out to me. There's a contact form on my website, which is just SeanForney.com. But you've got my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook, all that stuff's on there.
Oh, that's great. And and guys, definitely pick up a copy of this Vampirella issue if you love Sean's work. Absolutely incredible as well. And I'm happy. Thanks for coming out today. I really appreciate that. And stay tuned, guys. We're going to be doing a quick comic vault section and our toys and collectibles segment, guys. So thanks again, Sean. I appreciate you coming out today, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody that's watched. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. And perfect, guys. So we're gonna get right into the comics vault segment here. So we are gonna go over one really cool book here today. I like to share this. I mean, I'm wearing the Spawn shirt here, if you can see. But yeah, Todd McFarlane has a really cool book here. I like to share this. It's The Art of Todd McFarlane, for any of you fans out there that really want to check this out. It's The Devil's in the Details, a great book that you can pick up on Amazon or at your local comic book shop. Shows you some of his incredible poses and work there. He's got some other great images here that you can take a look at as a reference for some of his work. Some great pencil work, some great inking as well. And then, I mean, if you can really go back to some of his earlier work from the 90s on like the Crow and some of the other works from like Hellcop, as you can see right there with Hellcop. And yeah, I mean, this is one great piece. A lot of Spawn here. So for those Spawn lovers, definitely check it out. Some beautiful images here. Some really cool toy work that was made and inspired by Mr. Todd McFarlane himself. And if you guys like Todd, definitely check out our episodes that are coming up soon on the Heroes Manufactured Creators Unleashed. He's actually going to be appearing in the show for our New York segment. We did a one-on-one interview with him. Great guy. And yeah, here, let's take a look at one or two other images that he did. So definitely a great book to check out. That's called The Art of Todd McFarlane and the Devil's in the Details. So check that out if you want to learn more about Todd. And then for our toys and collectibles segment today, right here, we're going to go over one of these. We did this a few weeks ago with our 3D comic standees. These are really cool. I got one today of the Hulk, Incredible Hulk. Definitely a cool one to check out. So this won't take too long, but I definitely want to check this one out for you guys. If you like the Incredible Hulk, this is a really, really cool collectible item. The standee comes all intact right there. Check that out. It's a nice little green Hulk, but it is absolutely incredible. For some reason, it looks gray, but it is actually green, guys. So if you look a little closer, it is green. And it's a pretty mean cover. Love it. I love the way that you just having this on your wall or just in front of you is awesome. And this thing about $20 roughly. I mean, pretty cool buy by a company. Let's see, called Loot Crate. So definitely check them out. These 3D Hulk stands are great. So thanks, guys, for joining us for another amazing episode. This is our 6th episode, and we're going to have a few other great ones coming up soon. We have some more artists coming by in the upcoming weeks. Thanks once again, Sean, for coming onto the show, and see you guys soon. Take care.